You recording?
Yep.
Hey everybody, it's Merlin here, and I have Dan of Film Fanatics fame. Say hi.
Hello.
And, hopefully we're going to be able to get this up. I've been having some issues getting the uploads for a recent podcast for Sopranos, but in case for some reason it doesn't load up again, Dan mostly liked the first part of Season 4.
Yes. For the most part. There was one episode that I didn't love.
But overall...
But most of them were in, like, that A- range.
It's like it's pretty close to Season 3. You did agree with me that it's kind of like a good follow-up?
Yeah, it is a good pairing with Season 3. I would say that it's not as good. Mm-hmm. It's not quite up to the level, but it is good. It's certainly one of the better seasons.
Okay, that's good. Well, we're going to leave off now. We're going to finish the first half, we're going to finish the last half of Season 4, and then we're just going to do an overall Season 4 wrap-up, so anything you missed last time, if it gets uploaded or not, you'll get to cover it briefly anyway.
Yeah,
so,
pretty much.
That'll be fine. So, let's dive into it, actually. What's the next episode you saw, Dan?
Okay, we're going to start with episode 8 for the season. That's Mergers and Acquisitions. Mm-hmm. And here... Tony's got yet another extramarital affair going on.
With
he's
the
sort of debating...
artist lady.
Yeah, with Ralph's new girlfriend.
Of course.
Basically. So, she's a bit of a jokester. She likes to pull pranks on people, so he tries to bring that into his own life with Carmela.
She made me laugh.
That doesn't go over very well. She's all right.
It's pretty much like very basic, like Moe... Curly Larry sort of stuff. I mean, like she removes some of the salt, puts it in there. It's like very like 1930s. And
yes, it is.
I think he laughs, right? I think he enjoys it.
He likes it.
He likes it. Yeah.
Which is why he tries to spice up his own marriage with that, and that does not land.
Oh yes, he tries that with Carmela. She gets so angry.
She gets really angry. So that's one thing. Now Paulie is having issues with his mother in this home that she's in. She's confined to a room.
And the ladies there are not getting along with her?
No, not at all.
Giving her a hard time. Even though she's a very nice person.
Yeah, she seems nice.
She's a very nice old lady.
Yeah. Green Grove, it's called.
Once again, Green Grove. Great place, right?
That's right. So, and then Furio and Carmela, their sexual tension is really reaching a boil here.
You could say the noses are beginning to intertwine.
Yes. And he ends up going to Italy to sort of unwind, deal with his feelings, see his father.
Dan, he's going to Italy. Are you worried?
Are you worried?
Hey, but
my least favorite episode of the entire run is when they go to Italy.
But he's going back to Italy for a reason, because he's from there to talk to his old gangster father and ask for advice, right?
Yes, it actually makes sense within the context of the episode.
No bad comedy.
The episode isn't all about his trip to Italy.
Okay.
But the interesting thing here is his dad basically says, look, if you want to be with this woman, you got to take out Tony. Mm-hmm. So that is quite the reveal.
Very old school way of doing things.
It really is, yeah. And then the only other thing really in this episode is there's been the running theme throughout Season 4 so far about Tony's money and...
thinking of the future.
Yeah, thinking of the future, life insurance policies, this kind of thing.
Your favorite plot.
It's just so boring. But Carmela finds Tony's money here and starts investing it.
And there's a great scene.
Interestingly enough.
Actually, I see you can tell that I watched these ones more recently because I can recall these. She goes to the bank and there's the whole tax thing where it's under $10,000.
Yes,
it's
so she puts $9,990 in it.
And the teller's like, it's interesting you picked that number because, $10,000 we have to report to the IRS. She's like, oh.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
That was great.
Yeah, that was good. I think the episode is decent. Mm-hmm. It's not amazing, but I'll give it a B+. I think we get some nice plot development here, and certainly the Ralph's Tony
tension
relationship. Yeah, tension is sort of coming to a head here. So episode 9 is called Whoever Did This. And this is a really good one because it's really starting to focus on Uncle Junior and the trial. Mm-hmm. And so here we see he falls down the steps of the courthouse right in the beginning of the episode. And that sort of opens the window for
mistrial.
Him to think, how can we spin this to a mistrial or something, getting it thrown out, whatever.
Their lawyer's great. So
they start to deal with this issue of maybe he has early onset dementia. Maybe.
Perhaps.
So he gets some counsel from his lawyer about that. At the same time, Ralph's son is having a real injury, real problem with a bow and arrow.
Lord of the Rings.
With his buddy. And he's a pretty young kid. I mean, we've never seen him before. He's not like 5, but he's probably like 10 maybe?
11,
10 or 11,
tops.
yeah. So, I'm not sure if I even realized he had a son.
Well, you will remember that early on in the season, actually there was like a throwaway line in the previous season before Ralph even showed up where they mentioned he was down in Florida taking care of his family.
Oh,
so
okay.
they were briefly mentioned, but I think they're divorced. He like has his kids on the weekend or something.
Right, okay. So Paulie has some sympathy for Ralph, and of course they've had their
Differences.
issues. With the comments and the gossip spreading, but he feels a little sympathetic, but not really. He's actually kind of hard on him, to be honest. And Pai O Mai, their horse, dies. He has to be put down. There's a big stable fire, and this was just the crucial episode I find of the season, because as we talked about in our last episode, Ralph is sort of the villain of the season, but I was kind of like, I don't know. After this episode,
He's still the villain.
oh my god, like tenfold. So he causes this fire.
Yep.
Doesn't ever admit to it, but he did.
He did.
And Tony knows it.
Get some insurance money, yeah.
Yeah, get some insurance money. So a huge fight breaks out between Tony and Ralph. Ralph gets murdered, which I loved because he was awful. So yeah, that all happens, and then he calls on Christopher. Tony does, and he says, "Look, something happened to our friend Ralphie here. We need to get rid of his body." So he's kind of the only one that is in the loop on this. Christopher is, but he does come over high on heroin, which Tony obviously has
disapproved of
in the past. So
it's interesting because the one person, like Tony realized that he just killed one of his captains for something that technically could help them. He got really overly emotional, and it's kind of interesting. The one person he can count on, his nephew, is really high on drugs. So it's like, this is the person I want to take over one day. This has got to be fixed, which I know leads into something else.
Yes, which is also very good. That's going to be in the next episode. I'm going to leave this with an A-.
Oh, so a pretty good one.
It is, yeah. Well, because it really shows us who the villain is. I mean, I hated Ralph in season 3. Clearly the villain there. But he hadn't really done that much in this season yet. I mean, he had the thing with Janice, and there was some tension there, but that was like one episode, and then she was sort of trying to get with Bobby after that.
Yeah.
So
kind of gave him a pass a little bit.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden here he is, killing Tony's horse.
I do want to ask you, though, I always found it to be very interesting because up to this point, Ralphie's been seen as a pretty horrible human being. But in the moment where his son is almost killed, basically, pretty much by his negligence, we actually do feel some sympathy for him. Like, he actually does care for somebody a little bit.
Yes.
And then it's that same episode where we're reminded again, no, he's still pretty bad.
Sucks.
So I always found that very interesting. They decided to choose to do that then.
It is an interesting way to do it, and certainly this would be the episode because you have both of those storylines kind of merging.
Both men are so emotional anyway.
Right.
Because I think he even gets overly sensitive. He says something like, it was just a horse, and I think Tony in his mind associated with that, this guy has the same mentality about this horse that I loved with that prostitute who was going to have his baby whose head he bashed in. And I think that's something that carried over finally. He practically killed him then anyway.
Well, and he did. And that is something that has stuck with Tony now for episodes, is the killing of that stripper. Because he really did view her as like a daughter figure.
He did.
And Ralph didn't get that at all. So yeah, there's some sympathy for him, but at the same time, well, yeah, because I feel like that's just a very human response. Like your son, may die here from this injury. If he didn't show something, he's just a despicable human being. They had to give him something, before the swan song there. All right, so episode 10, you sort of mentioned this, the drug issues with Christopher building up.
Always like this.
This is the episode where we see it, and that's the strong silent type. Tony plans an intervention to basically confront Christopher with the heroin addiction. And at the same time, Fiorio is back and trying to distance himself from Carmela again. And then Johnny Sack shows up to try and get in on this HUD scam that we learned about, like earlier in the season, sort of maybe episode 4 or 5.
It's the real estate thing.
Yeah, the whole real estate development. They're trying to buy these houses out. And to be honest, this is another storyline I don't care about. It's a lot like the life insurance thing.
I guess it's real. It's realistic, but it's not the most
boring.
exciting.
Yeah, like it's very boring, and to spend so many episodes on it. Like, what was interesting about it was that first episode where they went to kind of scope out the house,
clean it out.
Saw that it was inhabited by drug dealers.
Let me offer you this, Dan.
Yeah.
This is something that will be building up throughout the rest of the series here. This real estate thing is the first time you actually see the conflict of interest between New York and Jersey and the two crime families. So they have a bit of a disagreement, some tension there. So this is something that will slowly be building.
Okay.
So might not be the most exciting.
I can appreciate that.
But it is something that will factor in later.
Okay.
So you might, why are we spending so much time on it?
Maybe I would just wish they wouldn't spend as much time on it.
It's kind of like another way of just showing, hey, this is one way the mafia does business that isn't, cocaine or something.
Right.
It's a little more
I guess
subtle.
that's true, We've seen that with a few different things in this series.
True, with the telemarketing thing.
Yeah.
That is true. It's true.
So that all happens. What else? Oh, Melfi compares Tony's sadness over the horse with the ducks from season 1, which we've never really talked about that much on the podcast here.
We need to. I have tried to bring it up. Let's actually use that opportunity now, because I've always felt, and I think it's generally what they're going for, that when we are first introduced to Tony in episode 1, we see him being fascinated by these ducks, the innocence, the simplicity of it. It's almost like this desire for Tony just to kind of get away, and just he's never more content than he is with those ducks, with these animals, or with these memories of his childhood, or visions of Italy or something, some very wholesome woman, just simplicity, childhood. And I think he really cares for that innocence, and it's almost a representation of his base nature, the goodness that keeps us coming back.
Right.
Seeing that he is, I don't want to say a good person, but he's not as bad as a lot of the people around him.
He's got a sensitive side.
And as we've noticed, he really has grown. And I feel like the ducks and the animals are kind of a reminder of the best part of Tony.
Okay.
And I think that the horse, once again, that connection, it's true love for something so innocent. This is a horse, this is a beautiful creature.
But he really connected with it.
He did. It's a beautiful thing. He admires it, and nothing wrong with it. He can't be corrupted by what's annoying him with his wife or his son or his business. It's just, boom.
Well, and that's sort of what Melfi alludes to here, is that, his mother died, and the stripper died that he cared for, and his mistress died that she was counseling as well.
True.
But none of these things
really hit him
like the animals, in his life. And it is sort of a different way of looking at him, with this sort of more innocent, getting back to childhood sort of thing, which is why, as we've talked about, many times here, I really love flashbacks showing his upbringing, showing his past, because I think it gives us a more well-rounded picture of him.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I was glad they brought the ducks back up, because I had sort of forgotten about them. So Christopher gets carjacked in this episode as well.
I don't remember that.
He gets beaten up on a deal, and that's sort of, I forget whether that's before or after the intervention. I feel like it's
probably before.
I think it might be after.
Oh, no.
Is it before?
Can't be after, because there's the intervention.
You're right, because he goes right away,
and then they're like,
you're right.
They have a fight.
Because at the beginning of the episode, he kills Adriana's dog.
Yes.
He's so high that he sits on the dog and kills it.
And that is what gets Tony so mad during the intervention. Like, you killed an innocent
animal.
little dog.
Another animal.
Like, that, he's trying to call, and that's the thing that makes him the maddest. See, there you go.
It is true.
Again.
It all comes back. So
yeah. Poor Adriana,
I know. Well, poor Adriana for a lot of things.
Yeah.
She's not having a good season.
No.
So this one's an A- as well. I like the intervention stuff. The Furia Carmela thing is decent, but it's getting a little played out here. So we'll see sort of where that goes. But episode 11 is Calling All Cars. And
good title, I believe.
Yeah, it's not bad. So now Carmine wants a piece of the HUD scam.
See.
So we're still, dealing with that some more.
How do you feel about Carmine? He's another old school gangster like Junior. Very, very a little out of it.
I sort of like the old school gangsters.
He's funny. He's
in this.
No nonsense.
Because they really are like of a different era. It's like the like the Rat Pack type mobster.
Yeah, like Frank Sinatra back in the day.
Exactly. So I sort of do like that. Uncle Junior gives it his best shot with the Alzheimer's dementia ploy, but this is the episode where they shoot it down. And the judge says, I don't find you to have these issues. We're going to stand trial here and see what happens. This is also the episode where Bobby is continually going to his wife's grave and bringing her cakes. And he says he visits every day. And so Janice tries to kind of steer him away from that. And more
a little morbid
towards it's a little morbid, and then she sort of invokes his kids then too, and says, your kids don't really want to see this. Like they don't need to see you grieving every day because they've got their own issues. It's their mother that died too, not just your wife.
True.
So I thought that was pretty interesting. They also are trying to entertain the kids. They have Bobby over for dinner. This is Tony and Carmela do. And AJ and his girlfriend or
the Ouija
study
board.
buddy, whatever. Yeah, they bring the kids up to the Ouija board and try to contact their dead mother.
AJ's
which
such a
he's a jerk. He really is. The
final note.
Oh, I used to love him so much
in the season one.
But yeah, I just what a boneheaded move.
What a mean thing to do.
It was really, really jerky, and you feel so bad more than anything for Bobby.
Yeah.
He's trying to give these kids who just lost their mother, some sort of
levity,
return to life, and play some board games with AJ here, and does not work out well. And then the other thing in this episode is Tony and Melfi, for right now at least, are done. He says,
what happened this time?
No hard feelings, but I'm done. Not working out. He's decided that she is not really helping him anymore.
What was the conversation that drew that again? Was it talking about the mother again? That always gets in the way?
He had this weird dream about like the butterflies, and it sort of stemmed from that. Like he was telling her about it, and she wasn't being very helpful. She was just sort of like, well,
going through the motions a little bit.
Like what do you think that tells you? And what and he's just like, look. I thought we've established some sort of a connection here where you can actually talk to me about things instead of your usual patter, and I think it just really bothered him.
Yeah.
And I think he was still upset about the Pie Oh My thing from last episode because she insinuated, again with the mother, she insinuated that he didn't grieve
as well as he should
this much about his mother, and he's grieving this much about a horse. I don't think that sat too well with him either.
Usually, whenever you bring up his mom, it doesn't do well.
That's true.
Well, yeah, he leaves in a tiff again, But, But there's a couple more seasons, so.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I wasn't fooled for a second that she wouldn't be back. So this one's a B+.
Okay.
Next is number 12. That's Eloise, and this is where Furio just picks up and leaves. Goes to Italy. He says, I'm done. In fact, he doesn't say I'm done. He just gets up and goes. Tony has no idea.
Yeah.
Carmela has no idea.
Well, Furio does have a moment where he's thinking about...
Well, before... Sort of the catharsis for him moving to Italy is he does actually consider murdering Tony. They go on this helicopter ride.
It's a good scene, I think.
Actually, it is. It's one of the best scenes of the season so far.
He's just he's just kind of worrying there, and Tony's drunk or something, and Furio's just looking at him like, he'd just be an accident. Like Tony was drunk, fell
easy,
and he almost does it. He grabs him, and Tony's like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah,
and he just realizes he can't go through with it, which I think was a good thing to do. And he says,
"It was." So, he sort of makes up like, "Oh, you were getting too close to the blade there. I was trying to,
help you out.
Pull you back." Really not. So that's sort of the reason he ends up leaving, and that's sort of after him and Carmela get even closer. They sort of really have almost a moment, And let's see, this episode is a lot of Soprano family stuff. Meadows' new boyfriend Finn shows up. they have everybody over for dinner. They talk about this book, Billy Budd, that AJ's reading.
Classic.
There's all this, frustration between everybody. And at the end of it, Meadow and Carmela go to this, annual tea lunch that they have. Mm-hmm. And it's nothing but, confrontation, arguing, largely about that stuff, and she says to Meadow, you're not grown yet, just because you have this, apartment, you've got a boyfriend, you still have a lot to learn, lady, kind of thing. And so that was interesting. I do always like the Soprano family dynamic. Mm-hmm. What else? Paulie Walnuts suffocates his mom's friend
to get some money.
There's this robbery attempt that really goes horribly wrong.
I do want to ask you about that because these ladies were giving his mother a hard time, and I believe one of them says something about how she always carries cash, doesn't believe in checks or credit, doesn't trust banks, and he just decides, hey, maybe I've been a little short this week, I'll use this to beef things up, and tries to go in. She finds out, and he just kills her. How do you feel about that? Because I didn't like the lady, but he probably still suffocating an old lady.
I didn't like her, but I mean, it's a little much, a little intense.
Okay.
I don't think you need to murder a person about it. But yes, I mean, obviously, if we've learned nothing, so. I do like Paulie. But as we've learned throughout this series, is that Italians and their moms.
Yeah,
it's a bond.
It's a suffering thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it, I guess, but it's not
a little much.
It was a little much for my taste. And then the only other thing here is Johnny Sack meets with Tony about the HUD stuff. Suggests killing Carmine. A lot of suggestion of murder in this season.
Yeah.
Very little actually murder, but
pretty big deal, though. I mean, telling him to kill your boss for you.
It is, and that was, an interesting aspect to the real estate storyline.
There you go.
So I did like that. Overall, I give the episode a B.
It sounds like a lot of stuff happened.
It's a lot of stuff happened, but just nothing happened.
Yeah,
really.
Just mulling around.
Yeah, I am sort of glad the Furio thing came to a close. Mm-hmm. I think that was a little bit long in the tooth by the end of the season, but we only have one more episode, and that's the season finale called Whitecaps, which is named for the beach house property that Tony buys in an attempt, or wants to buy in an attempt to sort of smooth things over with Carmela, get the family a little closer. So Junior's court case ends here in a mistrial because there's one juror specifically that just
they threaten
can't make up his mind because they threaten him. Yeah. So that was interesting. The Shore House stuff, he goes in with I think good intentions on this beach property, but it turns out that very soon after, he puts the initial deposit down, Carmela says, we're done. I've had it with the mistresses. I've had it with everything. I have never once cheated on you. I certainly could have. She doesn't name Furio specifically or the pastor that came over in season 2, I believe it was.
Fix-it
guy. Every season she seems to have somebody that she really could get with if she wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so it all comes unraveled because Svetlana.
Oh no! She
calls her. Well, actually, she's not even the one that calls. The other one calls.
It's
Irina or whatever.
Irina, the stupid one,
the dummy.
Oh, Tony.
She calls.
Yeah. I loved you.
And says, "Listen, we've got a common enemy. He's cheating on both of us with this other woman, Svetlana." And Carmela's like, no, you don't you don't get to say that. I'm actually the wife.
Don't call me. This is how this works.
So she throws him out. He comes home the one night. He runs over his golf clubs because she threw everything out the window, and they were in the driveway. So
get the hell out of this house.
Yeah, basically, she's done. So because of that, he tries to reason with the neighbor, and I guess who owns the property at Whitecaps, and says, "Look, could you let us out of this because I'm going through this possible divorce now?"
No, you put it down. We can't back out now.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
And so...
Another one where they don't realize who they're dealing with
Yeah.
here.
But the wife knows.
The wife does.
His wife knows because she actually points out to him, like, do you know who that is? Like, you don't want to mess with him. Just give him whatever he wants.
That guy was funny. Yeah.
Yeah, he's an idiot.
Kind of a... I want to say he's sort of a Woody Allen type.
I could see that.
You know what I mean? Just kind of an upstanding New York real estate guy. It's like, I could get out of this.
Yeah, I could see that. So Christopher gets out of rehab here as well.
From Pennsylvania.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So he's got these 2 hitmen to deal with. And yeah, there's a couple of hitmen that are out for Tony, I believe, because of the real estate stuff. And they end up getting murdered because Christopher sort of recruits other people to murder them.
2 black guys, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they get hired. They get hired to kill Tony?
I thought it was Tony, right? They never really specifically say, but I assume that's who it was.
Well, Chris wouldn't be trying to kill Tony.
No, that's why Chris is going after these guys.
Because I do remember a scene where they got some hitmen.
Yeah.
Well,
that's why Christopher ends up murdering these guys.
You know what it is? If I remember correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Tony was considering murdering Carmine for Johnny Sack.
Right.
But they decided to back out of it, and so they have more hitmen kill those hitmen, so there's no trace of that.
Oh, okay. I knew it was something to do with the whole real estate development
yes,
and
that's what it was.
Who wants to murder who.
Because Tony didn't want to be tied into that because if they found out, then he'd have problems. So yeah, they just killed those poor guys who were just hired to do a job.
Right.
Yeah, those poor hitmen.
I know, it was kind of a shame. So for the season finale, it's not bad. I'll give it an A-.
I think the divorce thing,
the divorce thing is really a huge
that's the
huge step on this show.
That's a good way, I think, to cap it off, to get you interested. Like, whoa, like Carmelo's thinking about leaving Tony and kicks him out. That's pretty big.
And as you know, one of my big problems with the Tony character is the infidelity. I understand if you have, mistress here, mistress there, but it's like every other episode,
sleeping with somebody.
Part of it, right? He's sleeping with a new person, and so I was sort of glad to see her standing up for herself finally in that regard. So yeah, I did think it was a really good closer.
Okay, that's good
for the season.
I'd agree.
Yeah.
Well, I guess now we can look at the season as a whole.
Correct.
Well, I guess for positives, what do you think the best things about this season were so far? I was glad you did like the one Silvio episode finally.
Yes.
With Christopher's whole thing.
I did enjoy that. I would say my favorite parts of the season were early on with Adriana and the FBI. Mm-hmm. I thought that was an interesting storyline that sort of gets dropped about halfway through the season. Like, we didn't really
talk about it.
There wasn't much about it in any of these 6 episodes. Not that it's wrapped up, I would imagine, because they didn't say, like, hey, you're off the hook.
No.
So I imagine it will resurface in season 5, but I thought that was interesting. I honestly think the Pio Mai storyline is interesting, and it's not necessarily interesting on its own because not much happens with it.
No,
like
not
the
really.
one episode they have a horse race, and then of course the episode where he has to be put to sleep. But I think it says a lot about Tony and Ralph, both of them, because they go into this thing thinking they're going to be business partners. Let's buy this horse and everything, and then it just ends in such tragedy. For Ralph, I was fine with it because he's a jerk. But on the same day or week that his son gets put in the hospital and almost dies, then he dies. Although I did wonder, they never really went back to his son, at least thus far. So I don't know what happened with that. Who's taking care of him? Did he die?
If I recall, I think he survives. I think he might come out of the coma. They might mention it, but Ralph is pretty much just left unburied now.
So I guess maybe they figure his storyline doesn't matter. But I would like to know what happened to his son at least.
Remember what happened with Pussy? I mean, he still took care of his wife afterwards.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, he'll put some money
Kinda
down.
Is
maybe
what they do.
They'll still try, but
yeah.
I know that he might be mentioned, but it's not something that's really going to be major in any big season.
Right.
Not really.
No, you're right. I just would like some sort of acknowledgement of, hey, he's alive or whatever.
It was actually really interesting because he gets hit in the lung by the arrow, and that apparently sends him into a coma, maybe because there's blood blockage. I always think, okay, he got shot in the lung. I just didn't think that would lead to...
maybe he had some sort of condition already.
Maybe he was, like, a big shock to the system. But, that seemed a little weird to be, like, near fatal... Once they get it out and sewn up and everything, so I don't know. But he couldn't breathe.
True.
I don't know. Wasn't sure.
It was a little bit worse than it looked, I guess.
I thought so.
But so yeah, that stuff. Like we just talked about here, her throwing Tony out, I think, is a huge step forward. I'm very interested to see where that plot line specifically goes in season 5.
Yeah, it does go somewhere interesting.
I assume
for sure. Yeah.
I'm interested to see how he and Melfi get back on.
Well, let's see. His wife just threw him out, so he might have some issues to deal with.
There you go.
Right?
Maybe in the season premiere of 5. What else? Johnny Sack stuff.
Don't like Johnny Sack too much, do you?
He's just all right. I mean, he just hasn't popped yet to me. He hasn't set himself apart from a lot of the other mobsters that we see in this show.
He's a pretty big force. I mean, he's been dealing with Tony for a while. He's an antagonist-ish?
Yes-ish. Well, that's sort of who I was between, when we talked for the first half of the season, who is really the villain here of the season? Is it Ralph? Is it...
Johnny?
Is it Johnny Sack? He hasn't really done anything like...
Well, he just kind of hold things over, Tony's head. I'd say he does try to be friendly with him, but when things don't go his way, he'll be like, hey, listen to me, basically. And that kind of goes off and on for a while. There's some... That whole asking him to kill his boss is pretty big.
Yes.
That's pretty big stuff.
I would agree with that.
You don't typically talk about.
No, that is true. That's the one thing I could say that,
stands out.
That stands out. The Furio Carmella thing,
like
I said, it was all right, but I think it went on too many episodes. It was like 6-7 episodes in a row of, like, sexual tension, and then... Oh, he goes to Italy to talk to his dad. No, he's back, and then more sexual tension for like 2 episodes. That got a little repetitive for me.
Did you like the way it resolved, at least?
I did. I liked what happened at the end, and I did like that scene where he was really considering shoving Tony into those moving helicopter blades. So I thought that was very interesting. The junior stuff I liked.
The trial?
The courtroom, the trial, and Paulie in prison as well. I liked. So I think there's a lot of good stuff in this season. I think certain things go on a little too long. Maybe you're a little misguided. But for the most part, I think it's a good season. It's solid. Not as good as 3, but I'll give it an A- for the overall season.
So you'd say I guess that's the second best so far?
I would say so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say so. And a lot of awards this season.
Oh, really?
Finally, yes. For the Emmys, Gandolfini finally won.
Good.
And so did Edie Falco, actually. And then even Joey Pants won a supporting actor trophy, and then writing for the episode Whitecaps, which I think is really quite a standout episode because of the divorce-ish
separation,
storyline.
That I personally think that's probably one of the better endings, like as an actual ending to the episode for the season.
I think it's probably the second best season finale. I think the best is when Pussy gets killed.
Yeah, the season 2
that was intense.
That's pretty hard to top.
Yeah,
but season 3's finale wasn't bad either. Right, with Jackie getting killed.
Finale was that was.
Well, you felt
but I think that was wasn't that the episode before? I don't think that was the finale.
Oh, that's right. It was the episode
before.
Yeah.
So the finale ended at the restaurant with in the
middle
singing and it was okay, but like you said, 3 and 4 are kind of.
I think
companion pieces, so
they really
didn't necessarily need a huge, cliffhanger finale
because they resolve all the storylines pretty much directly.
Right,
right. With there's less of a separation. I mean, with 1 and 2, there is an obvious separation. 3 and 4 are a little bit closer, mostly because you have a lot of those same things just directly tying in almost immediately afterwards. And I think Ralphie also just kind of was a bridge there too. Season 5 is quite different, actually.
Okay,
it's a very different season. I don't. That's the best way I can describe it. I think once again we get more into the mafia stuff. I would say Season 5 is very comparable to Season 2.
Okay.
If that gives
We
you...
did get a lot of Mafia stuff in Season 2.
Very heavy Mafia stuff.
And police stuff as well.
And police stuff. I'm trying to think of the family stuff in Season 5, and nothing pops.
Okay.
The biggest thing about Season 5 is return of some more old school criminals.
Okay.
Including a Steve Buscemi, which kind of...
I'm excited about that.
Which
I
kind
love
of
Steve Buscemi.
mixes up some interesting ideas between, Tony's family life and crime life. And and some more development with the New York stuff with Johnny Sack.
Okay.
Those are the things that stand out for me right now.
I'm okay with learning more about the Johnny Sack character. I just... except for like that one scene, really, he hasn't stood out to me yet. He's always there. You know,
he will. He'll go somewhere. Trust me. I mean, I don't know if he'll be one of your favorites, but Johnny Sack does become a prominent character. I think you'll remember because he is one of the names. You know, people remember Johnny Sack. So
I'll tell you what else I really liked about this season that we didn't touch on here at the finale, but the Bobby storyline with his wife and with Janice. I thought that was a really, really strong storyline.
I know you like Bobby, and he's been getting more to do the last couple seasons. He's slowly growing as a character. Now, I find it interesting because you didn't really like Janice in the beginning. I remember that
I didn't.
At the end of season 2, you were like,
very annoying.
It's good she left, but now she's becoming more integral. And with Bobby,
she is.
Do you like her with Bobby? Or
I do actually. Well, I mean, I like her with Bobby because I want Bobby to be happy. Mm-hmm. And she seems to want the best for him. Mm-hmm. Sometimes she's a little abrasive, as the Soprano way is. But I do think that she wants the best for him and his kids. And she might be overstepping her bounds in some areas.
I'd think so. I mean, wife just died.
Wife just died. Let's rein it in a little bit. But I believe that her heart is in the right place.
I'd say so.
She's
just very headstrong.
Yeah, and so I kind of like that.
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's good. That's why you're more on board with Janice now.
I am actually. Yeah.
That's good because she won't be going away.
Okay, I'm all right with that.
Chris. I've been feeling about Chris this season. Because he had the thing with killing the dad.
Yeah, that was great. I think that was the
first
premiere, of the season. But that was great.
But then there's the whole downhill with the drugs.
Yeah,
Adriana.
I sort of feel like I liked the dynamic with Adriana in regards to the drugs. In terms of his own story, we've just seen it so many times. It's he's on drugs and they're going to do an intervention, and then he goes to rehab, and then he comes out. It wasn't sitting on the dog. That was an interesting plot line. When she talked about wanting to get married because she thought that you couldn't
because of Matlock.
Go on, because of Matlock couldn't go on trial, against your husband. That was interesting, but just the basic drug stuff. So that's kind of old hat.
Sounds like Christopher isn't really doing too much new for you. Really?
No, I mean, he just really hasn't done much this season. Yeah, that was that interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did like a couple of, him and Tony kind of storylines or even just scenes between the two of them having, interesting conversations. I don't dislike his character, though.
You still like Chris?
Yeah, I still like him. And I hope that, he can stay clean here in the future seasons. Might be better for the show and better for the drama if he doesn't.
Stuff will happen with Christopher. Yeah, obviously, So
I'm interested to see where the FBI thing goes with Adriana and her club.
I know how things ultimately basically go with Adriana.
I do.
So you must know stuff happens with Chris and with the FBI.
Yeah,
and,
what is it and when?
Yeah,
don't know.
You don't know. Yeah, you got a while.
Yeah, I think when I see them driving her to the woods, then I know.
Do you remember when Adriana? Do you remember when they drive to the woods?
No clue.
Oh, you don't even know the season?
No.
Okay, well that's good because I'll be honest, I forget.
So
I don't think it's this season.
Okay. Well, there's only 2 left.
Well,
season 6 is like part 1, part 2. So I guess there's 2.5 seasons left.
I think of them as 3, but it might be the end of this season or it's 6. It's either 5 or 6 because I know the last season she's not there.
Right.
I don't think.
Okay.
But I don't remember.
So I guess we'll see about that.
Yeah. Well, Silvio finally got to do something with an
Yeah,
episode.
I like that.
I liked that. And did you find Will Arnett? You looked up again? You found
Yes. Yeah, I mean, it's Will Arnett, but I just
missed it.
It was so out of my wheelhouse of what I expect Will Arnett to be
You're just
doing.
expecting to be like some crook, like,
yeah,
hey!
like I expected to be funny and crazy, and I've never seen him give a dramatic performance, so I just didn't...
Hey, for his, like, 2 scenes, I thought he did a pretty good job.
Yeah.
As, like,
Wasn't bad.
As the FBI agent's husband?
Yeah.
Partner?
Yeah.
Whatever.
A partner, I believe.
I think. Like,
Yeah.
just kind of hanging out in the house, you know? It was like, yeah. You got to do what you got to do. And it's like...
God.
You know, it's just kind of funny.
Yeah.
But that's, like, right around Arrested Development, too. So
Yeah, it would have been probably a year before.
So it's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. Before his breakout role.
Yeah. But, yeah, pretty good season, I would say.
That's good. Personally, I don't think whatever your friend said that it's just done after season 4. That's not really true.
Okay.
There's good stuff.
Yeah, we'll have to see season 5.
I've never heard that. I mean, I feel like there's more stuff in future seasons from here on in that might be more experimental in some ways, but there's plenty of good stuff.
Yeah.
You know, so we'll see.
All right.
Yeah, guys, but that was season 4. Dan liked it. Let me know what you guys think about it. Actually, some favorite episodes or moments, and that'll be it. We'll be moving on to season 5 pretty soon.
Yeah.
All right.
So long.
See ya.